As you know, the scriptures in the synagogues are broken up into different sections. We made our way through the 5 books of Moses in the previous religious year, and now we have started into the new parshas. Now, we're going to be doing something different probably within the next month, and but nonetheless, and I'm probably going to be doing something a little different today. Hopefully you'll be able to keep up. Parsha, it says, Lech lecha, Lech lecha, get yourself, go forth yourself, or get yourself out. Get yourself out. Go forth yourself. Different people translate that a little differently. It's Genesis chapter 12, verse 1 through 17, verse 27. Now, it's basically, actually, I want to read the first few lines, and then we'll move on from there. Now, Adonai said to Avram, get yourself out of your country, away from your kinsmen, and away from your father's house, and go to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation. I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you are to be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse anyone who curses you. And by you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. Now, you know, we're reading the Bible, and a lot of people just look at this and they take it all for granted. But you know, Avram was just a guy like you and me. He was just a fella, and God said something to him. Can you imagine anybody here, you know, Avram probably had friends. I mean, I know he had relatives. Can you imagine someone say, you know that Avram, he hears voices. He hears voices, and he talks back to those voices. I don't know about Avram. Maybe he needs to take a pill of some sort, you know. Maybe he's bipolar. Maybe, pardon? Schizophrenic. Okay, schizophrenic. Maybe that's what it is. Some of his other friends probably said, you know, Rami's a nice guy. I really like to go on trips with him, or we like going down to the local whatever together, but he's still a little different. You know, I just never have quite been able to put my finger on it. All of Ram, he's just, You ever known people like that? You ever known people you say, oh, my father-in-law used to say, oh, he ain't got both oars in the water. You know what happens when you don't have both oars in the water? You kind of go around in circles. Then I've had other people that say, you know, that elevator don't stop at all floors. Okay? And who knows? You and I don't know what was going on with Avram. I know he was a responsible guy. He was taking care of his nephew because his brother had died. That's responsible. I'll tell you, I remember when my brother called me up and says, Marie and I have put in our will that you and Judy will get our 3 boys should anything happen to the 2 of us. My wife and I immediately prayed that nothing would ever happen to the 2 of them. And if you knew my nephews, you'd know exactly what I'm talking about. And maybe love was a lot like that. A lot like that? You get it? Okay. So, yeah, I also went to Country Bear Jamboree, and I'm full of all those jokes, old jokes. At any rate, you've got to try to put this in a reference that you yourself can relate to. We all have jobs. We all have comfort zones. That's a nice terminology nowadays. Everybody has a comfort zone. You know, I'm comfortable in my house. I don't like to get out of my house. I like my neighborhood. You know, people have comfort zones in church. People have comfort zones for their entertainment. People have comfort zones for the restaurants they go to. You know, you go to the same restaurant over and over again. Guess what? You have a comfort zone. And here's Abraham, and God is saying, forget about all that stuff. Forget about that comfort zone. It's time for you to get up and get out. Now, a lot of the scribes and the Pharisees and a lot of the scholars will say, oh no, what God is really saying is find yourself. Go forward looking for yourself. And, you know, that's a good thing. What is it? You know, it says, know thyself, to thy own self be true. What, you're supposed to lie to everybody else? To thine own self be true? Of course not. But I still have echoing in my mind what Yeshua said. He says, he who finds his life will lose it. You've heard me say this too many times probably. But he who loses his life for my sake will. Thank you very much. You don't have to say that in King James. Find it is good enough instead of findeth it. But the point is that, yes, it's good to know who you are, but you better have some help doing that from God himself. And here is Moses, and God is telling him to go out. Now, this is a big deal. You might not think it's a big deal, because after all, we all know what happened. Everything turned out just fine, didn't it? You know, he became the father of nations. He became Avraham, the father of nations. He was wealthy. He conquered armies with his servants. He had a son. He had lots of things, you know, and things are something everybody relates to in this life. He had a lot of stuff, and he had to move all that stuff around, and he had so much stuff he had people to help him take care of it. So everybody says, oh, everything just turned out fine. It's so much easier to relate to Avraham from the other side of the equation. But people, you've got to go back to the start of that equation and relate it to your own life. Now, you go on a journey. You know, we went to Florida. And we know that I-65 goes to Nashville, I-24 goes to Chattanooga, then we pick up 75 down to the Florida Turnpike, and we take the Florida Turnpike to 429 to I-4, I-4 to exit 668. We turn left, and we go down that street, and then we see Walgreens on the left-hand side. That's my wife's direction. And we turn right, and bingo, there's the resort we stay in. Okay, pretty easy, huh? Didn't need a GPS, right? Didn't need a GPS. What do they call that? I have on my other car, I have OnStar, you know, and every once in a while I'm having trouble finding customers, and I hit the old OnStar button, and it's fine. But I really love it. You have deviated from the suggested course, and I'm thinking, should we continue on? You know, and I'm thinking, wow, a voice, you know, but that's not what Avram heard. He didn't have any of that help. He didn't have a road atlas. He didn't have any maps. But God had prepared a journey for him. And you know what? He's got a journey for you too. He's got a journey for you too. You know, I just thought about the fact that one of our brothers here came up to me and he said, you know, I couldn't find last week's message on the download. What is that, YouTube? Where's Joey? Joey's down here? Is Alan's going to be in there? Oh, okay. Well, it's not in there yet. So what he did was he went back to, I guess, 2010 or 2011 and heard my last message on this passage. So if I'm saying anything that you heard last time, I'm so sorry. Because I don't write these things down. And one of the reasons I don't write them down, I want to tell you what God wants me to tell you. And I should look and see, well, I shouldn't say that because I said that last time. Well, but what if God wants me to talk about that today? Thank you. Okay, good. Now, so far, but in this regard, we have to try to put ourselves in this man's shoes. Okay? In Hebrews, it says that Abraham looked for a city whose builder and maker was. Thank you very much. It was God. That's right. He wasn't looking for anything but what God wanted for him. And there's a certain amount of trust involved in that equation. And trust was accorded to him for righteousness. Because of that trust that he had. Now God gave him that trust, and God gave him and showed him reasons why he should be justified in that trust. But God will do the same thing for you as well. He was called out. He was called out, and God called to him, and what did he say? He said, "Follow me." Does that sound familiar? I sure hope it sounds familiar, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. Matthew 8:22. Matityahu 8:22. I'm going to start with 21. Another of the Talmudim said to him, "Sir, first let me go and bury my father." But Yeshua replied, "Follow me and let the dead bury their own dead." In other words, the affairs of this life do not compare to following the Lord and doing God's will. Now, some of you think, that's pretty drastic. Bury my father. I have to go bury my father. God had issued a call to him. God had issued a call to this man. And if God wanted him to bury his father, to be there to bury his father, he would have said, okay, fine, the call is for later. I believe that. I believe God lets us get our affairs and our house in order. But this particular call was to this man to leave now because the Lord wanted to shake up that comfort zone that this man had. It was something he needed. You see, God speaks to each one of us. He always knows where you really live, and that's where he talks to you. Remember when Nicodemus came in, did he ask the Lord about being born again? No. He said, what must I do? We know that thou art a man, come from God. And he looked at him and says, Nicodemus, you must be born again. You see, he knew what was on his heart. And he knows what's on your heart as he asked you to go on a journey with him. Matthew 9:9. As Yeshua passed on from there, he spotted a tax collector named Matityahu sitting in his collection booth. He said to him, follow me. And he got up and followed him. Now, we don't know all of the story surrounding Matityahu. Matter of fact, I'm still trying to figure something out because in one of the Gospels it says that he's the son of Alphaeus. And I also know that there's a Jacobo who becomes one of the apostles, and his father is Alphaeus. I don't know if it's the same father. I don't know if it's the same man. It might have been a popular name. But we don't really know much about him other than the fact that he was a tax collector. Now Jewish men who were tax collectors in Israel, it was a business. They went out, and the Romans had to get people to collect for them, and they got a commission off of what they collected. And they had a job to do. And if they didn't do their job, well, the Romans were probably concerned, are they embezzling? Are they taking more than their share? What's the deal? And then, beyond that, Matthew, and he was a Levite. He was, in another chapter, it says that he was a Levite. Do you know what that means? He was descendant from the tribe that God said that he would be their inheritance. That God was to be their inheritance. But you see, Levi didn't see it that way. He said, I got to eat. And I got to eat and live the way I want to live and eat. You know, we can all be just like that sometimes. And Yeshua had a different idea for him and called him to a different path and a different plan and a different lifestyle. He called him out of his comfort zone. That comfort zone where he had I don't know how much he made. I know that he didn't seem to mind the fact that the rest of Israel considered him accursed, a sinner, apart from God, and not part of the people of Israel. He wasn't concerned with that. So he must have been more concerned with material things and his job and his status, both with the Romans and the people that he cared about. And Yeshua called him away from that. And amazingly enough, we don't even get an idea that he thought about it. He just gets up and goes. God had spoken to this man's heart. He heard something more than just follow me. Just like Avram heard something much more than follow me. Matthew 16:24. Then Yeshua told his Talmudim, if anyone wants to come after me, let him say no to himself. Take up his execution stake and keep following me. Take up his execution stake. You might know where it says take up the cross. But the first thing he says is that you must say no to yourself. You know, there was a big movement at one time in the church. I don't know if it's still there. And it's still talked about in schools. And as everybody knows, it's a two-term word, and it's called self-esteem. That's a big deal. You know, I remember one time I sat I was in some sort of a revival choir. You know, some churches schedule revivals. I never have figured that one out. But I was sitting in this revival choir, and this man got up and preached on the fact that we need to learn to love ourselves first before we can love anybody else. I don't think I had... Now, I do believe there are people with severe problems where they don't like themselves. But I'd say the general rule of thumb is that we all don't have any trouble learning how to love ourselves. Nobody had to teach me how to lie. And when I lied, I usually was protecting the one I love the most, me. You know, you've probably heard the story. Bill Cosby turned 50, and he did a wonderful tape, and he's talking about his children. He says, I didn't have to teach my children how to lie. He said he walked into the kitchen, and there was his beautiful little girl, 4 years old, and she had a chair, and then she had something else stacked up on that, and she was reaching up onto the top shelf where the cookie jar was, where her mother put it. And she got some cookies out, and he caught her. And he said, what are you doing? And she looked at him straight in the face, did not miss a beat, and said, I'm getting a cookie for you. Didn't have to teach that little girl how to lie, and you don't have to teach us how to love ourselves either. I just don't understand that. You see, one of the tenets of the faith that we just read was you must learn to treat each other as you would have them treat you, to love them as you would have them love you. And then Yeshua even calls us to a higher and greater commandment, us believers in Messiah, and he says, love each other like I have loved you. Boy, that's really a big call. That's a big call. But we're called to that. And if we're going to keep following him, that's what we need to attain. That's what we need to attain. And I like that. It says some of the translations just say, follow me. This one says, keep following me. The scriptures talk about working out your salvation. Now, that doesn't mean you earn your salvation. You are living through it until it's time for God to call you. And that's what we're doing here on earth right now. Each one of us here is living through our salvation, the life that God has called us to, the plan that God has called us to. Are you all sure you're there? I remember listening to Marty Chernoff say, oh, this one man said he lived his whole life and he was a fine Christian man. That was one of the terms we used back then, and people still do, and it's a good term. And he said, oh, but I really missed the calling that God gave me. And boy, I said, I don't want to be like that. And I got some paperwork to go to seminary right after I got my bachelor's from University of Cincinnati, because Jeff Ayler was up at Trinity, and I thought, well, I'll go there too. Jeff's a good guy, and I think that's what I want to be. I love to teach, and I just really started to preach. I was pretty bad. Any of the people that were assailed, not that I'm great now, but the people that had to listen to me, I really kind of feel sorry for them. But the point is that God said, I got all the paperwork looked at, and God said, no, get a job. Get a job. And then he said later. And then, a couple months later, because I was a brand new believer, I read where Moses was 70 or 75 when God called him. 70 years old. Abraham was 75 when God called him out of the land of Haran. Moses was 70 years old when God called him to his ministry among the Israelites. When the bush on the burning bush occurred. I think it was about 70? 80? You sure about that? Maybe it was 80 in dog years. I don't know. Maybe, but, no. Israeli years are different. No. But the point is he was older. And I thought, God, do I want to be 80? Do I want to be 70? So what you all called me here, I was 62, I think. I thought, well, it's later. Now you might be getting rid of me. But right now, I really like what I'm doing. And this is what we're called to right now. And I'm trying to walk that path. So to sit there and say, did I make a mistake? Did I go down the wrong path? I can't worry about that. I have to trust it and put it in God's hands. And I have put it in his hands. And every once in a while you get these little bright glimmers of hope where somebody looks at you and they say, you know, you weren't like the other people, the other business people that I dealt with. And you made a difference in my life, and I wouldn't be here today as a believer if I hadn't met you. Well, then I think, did something. God did something. I must be following the path somewhere or another. No, I do believe that God does, we give him lemons and he makes lemonade out of it. But the point is, what I'm really talking to you, each one of you here right now, I don't know, I look and I see somebody in college, I see somebody that works for unions, I see somebody I see people that do different jobs and different things around town, and some are leaders in management, some are day workers. It doesn't make any difference. If that's what God called you to do, you do it the way you're supposed to be doing it. You keep following Him. He has a plan for your life. Are you looking for that plan? And that's not something you just say, okay, I'm signed up for the next 30 years to do this. That's not the way it works. You're signed up for the rest of your existence to keep following Him. That's what happened when you accepted Him, when you chose to follow Him. It's not just something that happened on Sunday and you forget about it for the rest of your life. It's part of your life, period. And Matthew never went back. I see no recollection of him ever going back to be a tax collector. Now, he was certainly qualified. He probably networked. They didn't have that back then, did they? I keep getting all these network updates from all you people. And he didn't network. Sort of. God just came and said, okay, I know who you are. You don't have to send me a resume. Boy, isn't that wonderful? Follow me. He's talking to the disciples. He didn't need a bunch of resumes. He knew who they were. He said, hey, you want to be mine? Keep following me. Matthew 19:21. Excuse me. 19:21. Yeshua said to him, if you are serious about teaching the goal, go and sell your possessions, give to the poor, and you will have riches in heaven. Then come. What? Then come, follow me. But when the young man heard this, he went away sad because he was wealthy. See, we've all got different things in our lives that God will call us to put away. It's not just money. Everybody wants to point the finger at the wealthy guy. Oh boy, I'll tell you right now, there are people that don't want to walk away from a life of drugs. There are people that don't want to walk away from a life of thievery. There are people that don't want to walk away from a life of debauchery and alcohol and sexual immorality. They don't want to walk away from it. Don't ask me why, but they're just hooked on it. And they don't want to walk away from it. And really, in the long run, what none of us really want to walk away from is being in charge of our own lives, as if we were really in charge of our own lives. You think you're in charge of your life? You're not. You just think you are. I learned that lesson the hard way. You think, I can control things. I remember when my heart was racing at about, 200 beats a minute one time. And I thought, can't I just slow my own heart down? No. Had to have drugs to do that, and then find out what was causing it and fix it. And I found out later what was causing it. It was me. I was making it do that. Don't need to go into that, but I was doing it myself. It wasn't drugs or anything like that, but it was a sort of a thing like that. But the point is, I'm laying there in the hospital, and they were taking me. They had me all taped up and doing the EKGs, and they were checking my heart out, and all of a sudden, my heart started racing again. I don't know what it was, 200 beats a minute. I don't really remember. All I know was it was really high, and then bingo, it went back down again to normal. And the girl said to me, she said, we didn't really get a good measure of that on the EKG. Could you do that again? I said, what? Can I do that again? Are you out of your mind? And then about 5 seconds later, boom, it went back again. We're not in charge, folks. Someday somebody is going to pick you up and put you on a table and wheel you out of the room and take you over to the mortuary. You're not in charge. Have you made plans for when that happens? And I'm not talking about some lawyer, a website where you can get your own last will and testament or a living will or whatever. I am talking about your path for eternity. And it starts now, not later. It doesn't get activated upon your death physically. It gets activated upon a birth spiritually. And then you keep following Him. Now, I'm not advocating, if you are hearing a works message on this, Forget that nonsense. You can't do anything to get salvation. Why in the world would I tell you there's something you can do to keep it? But the point is, if you did get it, something did happen in your life, then it is going to be a different life from this point on. And if it's not, you've got to ask yourself, why? And that's why we talk to him every day. Am I doing what you want me to do? Am I following you? Are you talking to me? Are you sending me that message? Am I quiet enough to listen? John 21:22, and we'll finish up here. On seeing him, Kepha said to Yeshua, Lord, what about him? Speaking of John, Yochanan. Yeshua said to him, if I want him to stay on until I come, what is it to you? You follow me. You follow me. Here's Kepha, Peter. And he's looking at this other fella, and he says, well, what about him? What's the big deal with him? I'm talking to you. This is your life I'm interested in. This is your plan that I'm involved in. This is your path that I have created for you. Don't worry about his. I'll take care of that. What's it to you? We just get so bogged down in so many things. I don't think Abraham would ever have gotten out of the land of Haran if he had to worry about Lot's career, what his father's going to do, about his wife, what is she going to do? I don't have any kids. What am I going to do with my inheritance? What about that business I've got back there in Haran? Now, I don't know if he had a business, but he supported himself somewhere or another, and God said, pick yourself up and get out and go where I tell you to go. Peter had that same call. I've got a job for you to do. You do it. I'm talking to you. And you see, he is here for each and every one of you. I get so carried away with people talking in the aggregate picture. Well, the aggregate's nice, you know. It is nice. We have this collectivism thing where we're all so interdependent. And I guess there's some nice attributes there, that we are a body of Messiah. But when people try to pull you away from God and pull you away from that foundation and that rock and that reason for being and the person to follow who is an eternal, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent God, you are going to miss the boat. You know, the world is trying to duplicate what God's wanting to do with your lives. But they're trying to do it without God. It won't work. I'm here to tell you that right now. It won't work. The world simply does not understand the sinful nature of mankind, the depraved nature of mankind. But guess what? We know somebody that does. And we know somebody that has the cure. And we know somebody that can fix that problem and set you on a correct path and head you down the right road. And those of you, and I look around and I know there's a lot of you here, you already know God. You already have a personal relationship with Him. Then I just want you, and including starting with me, are you following Him? Aaron, are you following me? Are you keeping that following? I'll tell you, sometimes you can listen to some things I say, and I'm thinking, oh, is he really there or not? What's he all about? And by the way, I'm not asking, people go to the extremes, they get off the bus, okay, Lord, should I go right or should I go left? It's not like that. And everybody has a job, and people say, well, I'm supporting my family and this and that. And I'm not telling everybody to run and get another job. I'm just telling you to listen to Him and see what He has in your life. Because 10 years from now, you might not even recognize where you were. As long as part of his plan, you'll be fine. I'm not saying it's going to be all roses and whatever you would call to as wonderful, but it will be what he wants for you, and you will know that, and it will be a security in your own life. You know, there's a lot of guys, I sit here at the end of my business career. I'm going to be 65 in January and retire from my company. I went to a certain level in the company, never went any higher. And I can remember thinking when I wanted to go higher. And I could sit here and I could say, well, you know, without the help of others, I probably wouldn't have attained what I did attain in this life. Do I have a certain financial security? Possibly. But you know what? With the way I'm looking at things right now, no matter how much money you have in the bank, how secure really are you? You know, I mean, my life has got to be founded in him. Right now, you know, I'm sitting here as I'm marshaling up all my documents and filing for Social Security and getting myself down for Medicare and whatever, Part A and B, and all this other stuff, and then I try to put a budget together for how we're going to live, you know, without a steady income coming from the job that I have. And I can do all that, and I think God wants us to be good stewards, and God wants us to have a brain between our ears. After all, He gave it to us. But the point is, in the long run, I have to trust Him. I have to trust Him for what He wants for me, and what He has planned for me. And that's what I have to definitely major on every day. And that's what Avram did. And we know how this story turned out because we've talked about this before, and you probably read it more times than I've talked about it. It's a wonderful story, and it all ends up with Yeshua right down there at the end of the line, because as far as I'm concerned, He's it. He is it. He's everything. Now, there's more with Him in the future, but it's with Him, and it's not apart from Him. None of it. So that's why we have to not just follow Him, we have to keep following Him. And sometimes that'll mean pulling you out of a comfort zone. Sometimes that'll mean pulling you into a situation that you're thinking, wow, I never thought this would be me doing this. But it will be you, because it'll be God working through you. And it will be fun. Might not be easy, but it'll be fun, especially when you look back on it. So thanks for listening. And I hope if you got anything at all out of this, it's lech lecha, lech lecha. Let's get out and get on with it. Let's get with Him and follow Him. Keep following Him. Can we stand together as we close?